good morning, or good evening, wherever you're joining from around the world. Hi, it's Saturday. I'm Krishan Wright. I am the host of the Blaxit Global podcast and the founder of Blaxit Global. It's a Saturday night in these parts. As you can tell, I am fresh back in the United States. Fresh off of my scouting trip in Portugal. Lots to share there, but I'm so thrilled to be with you all tonight. If you would do me a favor and be so kind and let me know that you can hear and see me, that would be fantastic. And let me know where you're joining from. Tonight is a really special event. I get the honor and pleasure of speaking to my very first guest on the Blaxit Global podcast, Deirdre Dares, Deirdre Amola. And I am excited, and I know she's excited. It is 8 a.m. in Bali, so I know she's anxious to get on here and speak to you. Hey, Cleo Rose. Hi, I'm excited too. All right, awesome. Sandra says she can hear. Awesome, thank you. Awesome. Hello from Ohio. Hey, Ohio. I'm going to be going to Ohio next month to see my son. Yay. Yes, you can hear. Awesome. Well, thank you all for confirming that you can hear and see me. Like I said, I am fresh off of my scouting trip, 15 glorious days in Portugal, was all over the place. I will save that for probably a video and definitely a podcast episode. But shameless plug, Monday's episode of the Blaxit Global podcast. The new episode is on Monday, and there is a surprise episode. Monday's episode is something that's a little different, and definitely for y'all Lisbon and Portugal fans, definitely tune in. So it will be in your phone and your feed on Monday. Hey, Lynette. Lynette is here. Hope you guys were able to catch our live. We did a live from Lisbon. I was in Porto, and Lynette was in Lisbon, and we met on our scouting trips. Yes. Oh, hey, we got Washington in the house. We got Chicago in the house. We got Houston in the house. We got Florida in the house. Oh my gosh, look at y'all filing in. Tag a friend. I know that there are people who are anxious to one, move abroad, and two, how do you support yourself abroad, right? So, if for those of you who have listened to the Blaxit Global podcast, we feature amazing and incredible stories of people who have made the journey, and it all looks different depending on the person. And like I said at the start of the conversation, I'm super excited to have my very first guest join me today. Deirdre is joining, and I will bring her up here now. She is joining all the way from Bali, Indonesia.
Morning, or salamat pagi, as we would say here in Indonesia.
Oh, look at you getting the language. I love it. Well, Deirdre, you're like a Blaxit Global alum, being my very first guest.
I love that.
I know. So it feels like, even though the podcast isn't even 2 years old yet, it feels like a full circle moment. But one of the things, like, you have, even from, we have not been in the same room, but our virtual connections, you have done just amazing things. So for those of you who have not listened to Deirdre's episode, it is on our YouTube channel as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts. It is my very first episode of the Blaxit Global podcast, as I mentioned, and Deirdre talks about her journey. So if you want to give like the folks like a quick recap of the journey, and then we'll dive right in.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be joining you all this morning, evening, maybe afternoon somewhere. I'll give a quick rundown. So I came from what I call a hyper corporate background. So I was a management consultant, or you could look at it kind of like a corporate strategist, going into boardrooms, advising CEOs, senior vice presidents, like basically just having to be a Swiss Army knife of business. Whatever their problem was, I would be on the team and it'd just be like, okay, y'all go figure it out. Didn't matter if we had the industry experience or whatever, but we just had to get up to speed really quickly, come up with a solution that would work, and actually present it to the client. So I was working at Boston Consulting Group, burned out, which I think is probably the story or a similar experience for a lot of people who are joining or at least considering their Blaxit. And I was like, okay, I'm quitting. I left. I did not have a plan. I did have savings. So I don't want to be people to be willy-nilly out here like, oh yeah, I'm going to jump off like Deirdre did. I had savings, right? So that definitely helped. But I left not really knowing what was going to be my next step. I knew I wanted to start a business, had no idea what that could look like because I was like, it could literally be anything. And also, I'm not in a rush to figure it out. I would say how I landed in Bali, as like a really quick recap, is that I went on a trip with my sister to Cambodia, Thailand, and Bali. And I was not meant to go to Bali. I was meant to go to Vietnam, but they were like tripping on the visa stuff. I was like, this looks like too much effort. Where else can I go in the region? Found Bali on the map, decided to go to Bali. The second day I was on this island, something was like, you need to move here. Not, I want to move here. You need to move here. And I was like, okay. So 4 months later, I did move to Bali. And I would say the rest is history, but yeah, I'll just say the rest is history. And then we'll probably get into all of the other things along the way.
You know what I love about your story, and thanks for giving the recap, is you were on a trip. We weren't doing a scouting trip. It was a vacation. And, there's a saying that God speaks to you first in whispers. And you had talked about being burnt out, the 80-hour week and all of that, but you were able to hear the calling and heed it. Like you said, 4 months later, boom, you were in Bali. And if I'm not mistaken, this year is going to make your 5th year.
Yeah. So, so basically, like my year 5 will hit in August, which will be like right around when BTF Bali is ending. So it's going to be like a very special time.
Mm.
Wild. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't believe it's 5 years. The time will fly, y'all. Once you leave, you look up, you're like, oh, it's been a decade.
Yeah, right. Bye, America.
Toodles.
So you are living your best life. And for anybody who is not following Deirdre, I mean, go on Instagram. It's a feast for your eyes. Every day, every shot, it just is like a page in a magazine. The rice fields. Even now, you've been doing. Even from our last conversation, right? You've been taking dancing lessons. I see you on, boats and chasing waterfalls and living your best Black life.
Yeah. And that's just my regular life. Like
Wow.
it's normal here. And it's interesting because sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh, this is my life. It's still like, even after being abroad for this long and doing all these things for this long, it still hits you that like, is this really my life?
Oh
Is
my
someone
God.
gonna come taking this away from me anytime soon? But yeah, it definitely keeps hitting in waves.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine. And so you landed in Bali, you took some time, to figure it out what you wanted to do. And really not necessarily, I would say, and correct me if I'm misquoting, not just figure it out, but just allowed yourself time to just like be, right? And as I mentioned at the top of this conversation, I'm just coming back off of 15 days in Portugal, and it allowed me time to just be. And I imagine for you, especially when you went to Bali and then you felt that calling 4 months later that you're there, you're having that time to just kind of be and even just, I don't know, maybe reimagine what is inspiring or what your life is going to look like. Is that kind of like how it started to come to pass?
100%. Like, I think one thing that we don't even realize that we don't have in our average everyday lives, I would say whether you live abroad or whether you're in like your native environment, is just space. and time to just be, because you have to build that space in. So like moving abroad doesn't fix that problem, right? Like I could easily get wrapped up in Black Travel Fest and this collection and like chasing waterfalls and all the things and not leave time to be. So when I moved abroad, it was the first blank canvas, like the first time I'd had blank space maybe ever.
Wow.
Maybe ever, because whatever, and this is true of whatever country you go to, there's kind of like an order of things, right? It made the order of things and like what's expected may look different, but for the most part, like pretty much every society has their expectations that are imposed mostly on like the natives, like the local people. So if you're from the US, there's like a plan. And if you're from Bali, there's a plan. But when you take yourself out of that native environment and you plop yourself into a new environment, you don't have to be on that track anymore, right? Like no one's expecting you to do it. But like in the States, it's pretty much, I don't know, finish high school, maybe go to college or get a trade job. Now you're working. Oh, maybe now you want to make more money. Oh, go back to college. Like, go back to start.
Yeah, right. Oh, don't forget, add debt. Add debt.
Some debt. So now you desperately need this next job.
Yes.
Rinse and repeat.
Yes.
And so on, like buy a house to add more debt. Like that's just the program, right? And so I never had the chance to just sit and be like, what do I want? Never. Like I thought I was doing what I wanted, but really I was doing what was a combination of what I wanted within the context of what was expected. So it was the first time I had true freedom to really decide.
That resonates. I think, I can speak for myself, but also a lot of people I've had conversations with is that we live this life that we think we're supposed to live, whether someone told us or based on what we've perceived in society. And you wake up one day and you're just like, who am I really? How did I end up here? And it's almost like sleepwalking, right? You're living life by default. And for those that have or are considering making the leap, it does allow you to vibe in a different frequency because it calls on all the senses. You have to, you're constantly learning because everything is foreign. And it allows you to tap into that growth potential. And so I want to like kind of skip it forward a little bit. So you started Black Travel Fest, which is this amazing $1 million, let's say it, $1 million company. You went from sitting, and saying I'm burnt out to I'm living in Bali, I'm living, chasing waterfalls to now like $1 million business in less than 5 years. So tell me a little bit about, and those who are not familiar with Black Travel Fest, what is Black Travel Fest?
Okay. So at different points, I've struggled with like the most concise way to describe Black Travel Fest because it's so many things. But I've finally arrived at it's an HBCU homecoming that hits the road and goes abroad. That's the Black Travel Fest experience. So if you've ever been to like or heard of like Howard's homecoming or Hampton's homecoming or FAMU, I went to Florida A&M, the one and only FAMU Rattler. I always have to strike.
Yes.
But we have like the most fantastical homecomings where there's like so much love. Everyone is on one accord. Everyone is upwardly mobile. Like there's no hate. Like it's just beautiful. And so I created the Black Travel Fest experience to mimic that while people are abroad.
Wow.
That's really the best way to put it. Like you're going to party, you're going to like see all the things, you're going to network. Like the networking that happens is insane. Like sometimes I'm just in awe of like, wow, these two people just happen to be in the same space right now. This one has what the next one needs. Boom, just like fireworks. So yeah, it's a HBCU homecoming that travels.
Oh my gosh. And like you said, travel, because there's been trips to Bali. There's been trips to Ghana. There's been trips pretty much everywhere. So for you, you talked about the whole experience, and I'm looking forward to, the world has opened up. So I'm looking forward to finally making that venture all the way to Bali for BTF Bali. And so I'm excited because I know pretty soon you're going to be splitting your time between Bali and Ghana. And so, how do you think you're going to, because, the topic of our conversation tonight is building a business abroad, right? So I want to get into like the nitty gritty of, not only building a business, and now you have several, and we'll talk about the collection, but standing up a business in a foreign country and then add another layer of complexity, right? Not only that, multiple businesses in two different countries. So talk a little bit about how you start to approach that. That's everything from, and we can't boil the ocean in this conversation, but for some people that is everything from understanding, okay, the rules of engagement to navigating, sales and marketing. So like, how did you kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, this is the idea and this is the plan and it's go time?
Okay. I'm just writing some notes so I can stay on track.
Yeah, no problem.
This is a great topic for me to end up in like Kalamazoo. So I'm trying to just like make sure that I'm going to be able to stay focused. Okay. All right. So I think there's like a few important notes, like things to consider when you're thinking about funding yourself abroad, like the type of business that you want to get into and what that should look like. So I'll go over like just a few of those factors so that you guys can see why, like, me living in 2 different countries throughout the year, or even when I'm traveling around the world curating for Black Travel Fest, is not an issue. So the first thing is you want to have a business that is completely location independent. And I would say ideally that means time zone independent as well, right? So like
Okay.
now I'm doing this live with you, and that's my choice to do it, but like my business wouldn't rely on me being available during US working hours, right? So like first things first, like guys, I strongly encourage you to consider like whatever ideas or concepts you're considering, put that as one of the layers of your funnel, like, and it must pass that test, because it is very unpleasant to be like, oh, okay, so I've moved to Ghana and I have a meet my clients or whomever, they can only meet at 2 a.m. Ghana time.
Ooh.
So now you have to be up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or your working hours are not consistent with like the hours of the place where you're living. And so you still feel like you're a slave to the previous lifestyle. And I've seen experience that. So that's like a big thing. You want to have location independence and like time zone independence. The next thing is you want to have a business that, and this is, I'm a little bit biased on this because I'm also in the business of travel. So I specifically needed a business that was portable, very portable for me. Where some people move to a country and they're like, I'm going to open a chain of restaurants or a chain of hotels or whatever. But because I wanted to have that ultimate freedom, I have my corporate entity in the US and I continue to pay US taxes. I'm very happy to do so. And so if I'm in Ghana or if I'm in Bali, it doesn't matter. But you do kind of have to like pay attention to like the legal like working laws. So in different countries, it's going to look different ways. Like in Bali, it's very gray area as to like how much of our digital nomads, those types of people, are they working in Bali or are they working from Bali? Like, should they be getting taxed? So here's how I do this. I just went ahead and did what I need to do to get a working visa. I use it, you could say, like once a year when I'm actually hosting an event in Bali, but the rest of the year I just have it so I don't get caught up in anything and I don't have any problems. But I would say like for most countries, especially like places that are maybe a little bit newer to the expat scene, they haven't worked this out yet. It's just like, don't get a job on the ground. Like, don't take jobs from locals is pretty much the rule of thumb. And so, yeah, like don't take jobs from locals unless you have a working visa. So if you're in one of those countries, I would say Southeast Asia has a pretty well developed like expat knowledge. Like they've been hosting expats for a long time. They have pretty strong rules. But in Africa, they're just now figuring it out. So don't take jobs from locals and talk to people and understand the lay of the land. But like for me, I'm able to take Black Travel Fest wherever I go. And for the collection, that's a whole different story because that involves like, hiring people and figuring out the system and how is it going to be managed when I'm not here in terms of production and getting things out and shipped and all that. But I don't know if you want to get into that now.
Yeah, no, that's a nice little segue. So you started Black Travel Fest. Obviously, for the past 2-something years, we've been collectively steeped in the pandemic. And in that time, you also launched a couple other ventures, some courses, Move Abroad Master Course. You did your travel one. I mean, the list goes on. And so now the biggest feat, and I would say like stretch from where you were rooted into where you are now, is the Deirdre Dares Freedom Collection, a whole fashion line. Like,
Who did that, ma'am? I
yeah,
don't even know.
where did that come from? Let's get into that. So,
I don't know. Where did that come from?
where did that come from? Where did the idea come from? I love the name, by the way, right? Freedom Collection. So let's talk about it. How do you even conceptualize being in Bali, running a $1 million business, have several other offshoots of that, right? And then have this fashion line. Like, do you have a fashion background? Like, tell me all of it.
So, like, first I'll say that this is launching this collection. It's like a resort collection. Launching it's the longest thing I've ever worked on independently. I started in October of 2020, and it was a collaboration with another designer. And it was going to be really nice because she was going to bring one aspect, like her design background, and I was going to bring another aspect. And just over time, we just like our visions were not aligning. I think this is one of the challenges with collaborations. It's just like her vision and my vision were not matching. And so I came to a place where I was like, okay, this was a great way to like open my mind. Is this something I continue with? Or is this something I'm like, it was a great experiment, a foray into something new, but I have the choice whether to pursue it or not. And it literally just kept coming back again and again and again. I was like, okay, fine. I guess I'll continue on with this. But then that sent me to the sketch pad now because I wanted to, be completely free and like envision and execute what I saw as like being necessary and how I wanted the brand, this new concept to show up in the world. And so I started sketching and I was like, okay, I don't know who's going to manufacture these things, but the resources just started popping up. Like as I kept like taking the next step and the next step, it was almost like, I guess, divinely ordered that the next thing that I needed would just fall into place. And the next thing that I needed would just fall into place. And it's really interesting because I would say now it's probably about like 2 months ago, I was literally sitting in the spot where I'm sitting now. And it came back to me that when I was a kid, I used to sketch all the time.
Really?
Yes, I used to sketch outfits, like these fanciful outfits with like capes and dresses and jumpsuits and all of this, like probably like way futuristic at the time. And my mom one day came to me and she said, hey, if you pursue this like fashion thing, you're going to be poor. I said, like, that was a narrative in our household, like, probably like, I guess like a poverty mentality. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be poor. Therefore, bloop, threw that way to the side. Like I let it go so fast and I did not pick up the pen again until like 2021.
Wow.
2021, that's when I started sketching because like the collaboration was not working. And it was wild. Like I was sitting at my table, I was like, what? This is literally just a full circle moment.
Big time. That's huge. That's huge because,
Yeah.
and I guess maybe the reason why I'm reacting the way I am is, so many times in life, people have had well intentions, right? Because your mom wasn't trying to like kill your dream. She was trying to protect you. But at the same time, and it for a while, it did kill that aspect that wanted to pursue it, right? Because you're like, oh, I don't want this. And you
Yeah.
walled it off. And so there's so many times, in our lifetime that people will say things that they don't know the unintended consequence is that it stunts that person or prevents them from pursuing something that lights them up, whether it's, starting a fashion line or sketching or moving abroad. How many times have people had said, like, what country do they have Black people there? Why do you want to move there? What's wrong with here? And all of these things, and this desire to feel that you have to either answer all the questions and or prove them wrong, or all these different motivations that kind of use more mental energy and takes you further away from where you are or where you want to be. So
Right.
I love the fact that you were able to arrive back at that place during the pandemic, right? I guess that was the benefit of it because you didn't have to manage Black Travel Fest, seeing as how we weren't traveling, that you were able to have the space. And what seemed like something that wasn't going to work out with the other designer didn't detract you from ultimately what you were called to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that you don't get to experience as much when you're in your native environment, like your home country, and I use air quotes. You probably know I use air quotes. Our home countries, wherever you grew up, your native environment, is that you don't even really get the chance as many opportunities to just take leaps of faith. It's
Mhm,
harder. It's harder for all those reasons you just mentioned, right? You have like the naysayers and the well-meaners. Like they mean well, but their comments are actually going to like deter you and all these things. Whereas when you're abroad, think like the airwaves are just a little bit cleaner and more clear, that it's a little bit easier to take those steps when the whisper comes.
mhm,
And so I think like that's one big thing. Like when you're living abroad or outside of your native environment, you don't have as much noise. And so you're able to you'll probably see way more people having like these full circle moments because they're tapped in enough, because they're not as distracted. They're not like consuming or being surrounded by as many like conflicting concepts.
mhm.
They can actually hear these things coming to them, and you're more tapped into your heart space and you're able to follow those nudges. And so I think like that's a really powerful aspect of being abroad.
Wow. So now you have this collection, right? This resort collection. You're not sewing away, right? So
God forbid.
how were you able to go from working with a designer to then sketching it yourself to then figuring out, measurements, there's different body sizes, body types, and material, and, even someone to manufacture that, like how did you in that time work through, at least for me, right? I don't have that bone in my body in terms of like the fashion. So I would think like there's a litany of steps that you have to go from concept to execution.
Oh my gosh. I love that you actually brought up pretty much the major things, but one tip, guys. So like when you're doing something that's new, if things unfold and fall into place, I'm not saying you're never going to be frustrated, or that you're not going to come close to quitting, because I did come close to quitting a couple of times. But when things miraculously appear in the moment that you need it, that I feel like that is God, and that is the universe telling you, keep going. So it's like throwing you a bone, like, okay, you were obedient, you followed the path. Here's a little, okay, you're feeling a little desperate. Whoop, here's the thing that you need. So, for example, I had finished like sketching and kind of like pulling different inspiration, all these things for the various pieces. And I was like, okay, now I need a tailor to make the samples. Where does one start for that? Was my question. Like, I don't even know where to go. And literally, I had that question pop into my head on like a Thursday. On a Friday, I went to my then boyfriend's house, and he lived with a bunch of friends. And like one of the female roommates was like, "Oh, Deirdre, listen, I have this great tailor who like makes all this custom stuff, and she's really good, and you can like have her make anything. And so you like look at all this stuff I had her make." And I was just like, well, then that's really funny.
Yes. Wow. What are the odds of that happening in Bali, Indonesia during the pandemic? Right? Let's add a sprinkle of that to it.
Yeah. And she pulls me, she's like, "Oh my God." And she was just so excited. And she's like, "Oh," and she's coming to bring the second batch of stuff. Like, I'm gonna introduce you. So like I had the question on a Thursday. On Friday, I had the answer and the solution in hand. I'll give you another example. And this always happens right. I remember it most vividly when I'm most frustrated in the process. But what was this one? It was around like production management. Like, that's a full-time job, and there are professionals that do this. And the idea of me managing the production process, like negotiating with the contracts and like sourcing all the different vendors, because just because one company makes the sample doesn't mean that they are going to be the ones who do the full production for things.
Okay.
And then there's like all this quality control, like someone needs to measure the length of the split and make sure that the half waist, like all of these things. And I'm like, Deidre's not doing that.
So what did Deirdre do? Like, what do you do in that instance? Well, first of all, I'm impressed that you even knew you needed all of that, right? But then what do you do?
So Deirdre went to get coffee at a coffee shop. Like, not even kidding. I was just like, okay, this is frustrating. This is now the thing that will keep me from getting across the finish line. I went to get coffee at like this coffee shop that's just at the end of my street. And I was wearing actually one of the reject pieces from the collection. It was something that you guys, it's very boho. It's a jumpsuit, but it's like very super, super casual. And I was like, this doesn't make the cut for this drop. Like, it's just not, it doesn't fit with the other pieces, but it's in this print. And I will say that pretty much anything that I put this print on, people stop me and they're like, where can I get this? So I was wearing this like boho, super lazy jumpsuit, but it was in this print. And I sat down in the restaurant. A couple comes in, and there's like this really like curious Russian lady in the couple. She's like, I don't know, maybe in her mid to late 30s. And she looks at me and she's like, "Where'd you get this? I need this." I was like, I'm thinking to myself,
$500, ma'am.
Yeah, like,
You
do I make this sale, or do I keep it real with her that like, this is not even for sale. This is like my kickback, lounge around the house, whatever. So anyway, like we start talking, and I'm like, oh, well, I haven't launched yet, but I've been on the process. And like, she turned out to be a designer too. And then she was like, she's like, "Oh, are you in this Facebook group for fashion designers in Bali?" And I was like, I didn't even know there was a Facebook group.
Whoa.
A whole Facebook group with like more than 1,000 people. And she's like, "Oh, I'll add you." Bloop, 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 bloop. She added me. One of the top posts in the group was someone else asking for recommendations of production managers. What? I contacted like several of them. was interviewing them within like 3 days and had hired someone within 4 days.
Wow.
So
This
like
is blowing my mind. This is
it's
blowing my
very
mind.
it's very kismet. I think like again, when you're abroad, you're gonna operate on a different frequency. And it could be a little bit like a Bali thing, but I think it's just because you're out of that, hate to say it, but like maybe oppressive environment, it just gets you vibrating on the right frequency and like things just come. You call things in, like literally the same thing with my curve model. I was just like up to here. I was like, oh God, I'll never find someone who's like a really good representation of like a curvy girl, you
Mhm.
know, that's like got the hips, like has the larger waist and like also has chest and like all this because I'm built like this, guys. It's just true. It's fine. And I was so frustrated. And then one day, like my production manager was like, why haven't I seen any curve photos? Like, what are you doing about that? She's like, let me connect you with one of the ladies that I like the most. Connected me with her. Love her. Like we're friends now. But like I was connected with her and we did the shoot like a week later.
Wow. And your curve model is fierce.
She's
I mean,
she's curving. Listen,
serving
she's
up looks. I mean, we should probably drop the link to because I think you have that on your side, the ability to drop the URL for the collection so
let me
people can pull that up because your curve model is like serving them looks.
yeah.
She's
People are like,
like
I didn't
in the dresses. You know.
She's eating me up in every photo. Anytime I stand next to her, she's like, bam. And I'm like, ha ha ha.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. That is awesome. So you are wearing one of the pieces in the collection, correct?
I am.
All
This is
right, lay it on me.
it's the Jet Set Cohort. It's a 2-piece outfit. And I would say that one of the best features, my favorite feature is the back. So I'm going to attempt to show you guys the back. It's going to be a little bit messy, but.
No worries.
Ooh, okay, I'm getting there. There's stuff in this. So, okay.
I see the crisscross. Oh, look at that. Oh, that is cute. That is cute.
I wear it to dance all the time. And then there's like there's 2 splits on the skirt.
Wow.
Yeah, like
beautiful.
Like something really interesting about the collection is that it's 99% wrinkle free.
Hey.
So yeah, there's literally only one piece in the collection that needs to ever be ironed, and it's the black version of this because it's beyond, whereas this is it's like a poly blend. And the reason why I landed on this is a good story because it ties back into Black Travel Fest. But the reason why I landed on it needed to be wrinkle free is that when we had BTF Bali in 2018, like the group was phenomenal. There was so much love and they were so fly. But Black people, we need to iron.
We do.
We be ironing, y'all. Like we be like, and I didn't really. I had planned for every other contingency. I was like, if this happens, then this. If this, then that. If this, then that. I had all of my plans. And the one thing that almost broke the camel's back was the doggone iron situation because in Bali, they like kind of do ironing service, but like most, they don't offer irons in the villa. But they could not possibly support the ironing needs of the group. Because the average traveler, especially the average traveler in Bali, is not ironing. But one thing we're going to iron.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we gotta look fly for all those pictures on the gram. You know, we're bringing the linen. Linen has to be ironed, right? We got the linen outfit. We got all of that. You know,
every morning they were in the group chat talking about who has the iron. So eventually, like we bought a couple more irons, and then it was just like at least 3 circulating around. But the conversation was who has the iron. I was like, well, ain't this a mess? Of all the things that gets the schedule off every morning, it's the iron. So I was like,
man, the iron has its own Twitter handle.
the whole ironing situation. So that's why the collection is like mostly iron free and like very easy to mix and match, because when you're traveling, you want to look fly, but I would rather sleep an extra 15, 20 minutes than get up in that time to iron my outfit. So
Wow. And I'm putting the link um for the collection in the chat. Okay, so you all can pull that up. You should be able to see it. And you can see the videos, right? Because you have videos on there. There's, all these beautiful photographs. Also, the promo image for the thumbnail for our chat today is one of the dresses in the collection, right?
oh,
The red.
yeah, the Santorini flies, like
Because I even in the before I posted this a couple days ago, and someone was like, I know it was paraphrasing. I know I shouldn't just be talking about the topic, but I'm like loving this picture, and I'm like, see, because that dress.
yeah.
So talk about like the collection, because I know you're in a launch phase, and you have certain styles, colors, quantities. Like how did you land on that? Like,
Okay.
to be able to think through that, because I guess on the heels of that, and I can do another part to that after the fact, is you are in Bali. I'm sure your target audience is in the United States. So understanding now, it's probably much easier for you, right? Because you're from the US, to understand the market, but thinking through like all of that, there's still a lot of steps. So how did you land on where you finally ended up?
So I knew that I wanted to be true to my personal brand, right? But also recognize like what people would want. So if you know my brand, you know it's all about bright colors and like vivid. One thing about me, I'm going to be wearing red, yellow, blue, green. And when I travel, I'm going to have at least three of these things: a red dress, a yellow dress, a blue dress, a red dress, yellow dress, blue dress. Like I'm going to have those three things for sure in my suitcase. And so I knew I wanted that to come into the collection. And that's why this custom print has all of those things in it. But then I also recognize people need black, right? Like not everybody's trying to be, I don't know, a rainbow every time they leave the house. And so you have to have that as well. But I think it was a combination of just knowing what is visually stunning and also would push people a little bit beyond their comfort zone. That's important. But get them to like see themselves differently. So I'll give you an example. When the curve model put on the Santorini fly dress, like I almost broke out into tears because she looked in the mirror with the dress on and she's like, the way she looked at herself and then said, I feel like someone would ask me to marry them. She's like, I feel like someone will marry me in this dress. And I was like, yes, that is what I want people to feel like. When you put it on, you're just like, And so that was kind of the lens that I looked at all of the pieces through. Like when you put it on, do you feel like you've arrived? Do you feel a bit more of yourself? So within the collection, I knew I wanted there to be like a statement dress, like the dress that's always going to get you the photo, the dress that can kind of go from brunch to the rice terraces to wherever you want it to go, to Santorini. And it does mimic like the flying sensation. So I actually have one of the customers bought two of the dresses because when she was in Turkey, traveling, they didn't have her size. And she wanted to do the flying dress situation there, but they didn't have her size. They literally didn't have her size. But my collection does go up to 2XL. So she's like, I'm taking these dresses to Santorini just in case they don't have my size. I have my own dress. It's fine. And I wanted there to be like a really good jumpsuit in the collection. Like something that was just elegant and you just put it on. It's effortless. You don't have to iron it. It just pops. And so that's kind of the lens that I looked at the jumpsuit through, and I wanted it to have pockets, deep pockets. We need more pockets. Women need pockets. I'm just gonna leave that as that. And I
No, we
also,
do. We do. And you had like athletic wear, and it's funny because when I saw it, I saw like the dresses, and then when I went on the website, I was able to see like you had menswear and swimsuits and workout wear, and I'm like, well, look at Deirdre. I'm impressed. I'm so impressed. I'm impressed. So, how do you, Nana? And for those of you who are watching, feel free to drop questions for Deirdre in the comments so I can read them and we can answer those because I want this to be as interactive as possible. Deirdre has a wealth of knowledge. Obviously, as a business owner, managing businesses, now plural, abroad, $1 million business, right, from 0 to $1 million plus. Also, what, 60 plus countries at this point?
yeah.
Right. So whether it's, expat specific, Bali specific, business specific, travel, she's a wealth of knowledge. So please feel free to ask away. I definitely don't want to monopolize all the questions. So for you, like, how are you now looking at this? Because like BTF Bali is coming, and I already have my ticket, planning to head to Bali in July, and looking forward to seeing and shopping the collection and all of that. Like, how do you now envision? Like, I know you talked about at the beginning being able to structure your business in such a way that it's location independent and being able to have this freedom. Like, how are you now with the launch, right? It's going to be a whole different ball game. How are you mobilizing your team, right? Because we talked at the beginning of this conversation about coming from a place of being in corporate and burnout. So sometimes when we are Black women, highly educated, oftentimes overworked, underpaid, right?
Mm.
Avoiding bringing those behaviors into what is now successful business. How are you like structuring and guarding your time, building your team so that you don't repeat things from the past?
So it's really, I love this question. And also, it's interesting because my employees, most of my team is virtual. So the collection side of my team will be the first, they are the first people that like I've employed locally.
Oh, wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. So that's like, I didn't even realize that until just now because I've just been going so fast. But yeah, they're the first people I've employed locally. But the rest of my team that's been with me for quite some time, they know my background story. And I'm always telling them, like, if anything feels too much, please ring the alarm. Like, I
Mm.
try to be conscious about how much I put on their plates and like how we structure their work and like all of that. But also, sometimes you don't know what people's capacities are. Like, you don't know what's going on in their personal lives. Like all these things that I promised myself when I was in that crazy corporate environment that I wouldn't recreate that for myself or for anyone else. And
Mm.
so my team is often saying, they're like, you're so great to work for. We think it's because of your crazy experience in corporate. Right. And so that's the first things I'm conscious of, how I'm structuring their workflow. But then also for me, I have had to get really disciplined about trying to figure out, like, is this something that actually needs to be on my plate? Or should
Mm.
this be on someone else's, on the team's plate? Or is this something that we need a whole new person for? Like once this becomes repetitive or recurring enough, because I should be ideally working on the business. I shouldn't really be doing most of like the day-to-day tasks. It should be meetings. It should be curating the experiences. But like if I'm doing the actual work, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I kind of look at it through that lens because it's so alluring to just be like, oh, I'll just respond to all these emails. And I do it periodically just to stay sharp. But like for the most part, the repetitive things and anything that's already systematized, you shouldn't be doing it. And so when you get the discipline to recognize what those things are, I think that really helps to make sure that you don't recreate your own hell. And I also don't want to be my own worst boss. That's like a lot of entrepreneurs fall into that cycle where they just they become the boss that they hated, but now it's worse because you're just imposing it on yourself. And I was like, I don't want to be that person, and you have to fight really, really hard to do that. I want
Yeah.
to share one other thing is like, so last summer, I usually live by myself, but I had the notion to move into a house with a bunch of my friends last summer. And we had like this little co-working kitchen table, and each morning we would watch like this viral video of P. Diddy talking to his team. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Can I curse?
Yeah, go for it.
And so the video is literally P. Diddy with his whole staff, like everyone sitting there. He's like, you know why I worked so hard in the beginning? It's because I don't want to do shit. He's like, I shouldn't have to do shit. And he's like, because apparently someone dropped the ball and he had to jump in and do something. And so if you look at it through that lens, like you're doing this work in the beginning, you're going to need to do a lot of things, but you need to evolve to the place where you're not doing, you're mostly thinking and advising and guiding.
That is so true because, and I coach business owners, and it's, most times it's early stage entrepreneurs, some mid stage, but it's interesting because that is a tension point. Depending on how you're hardwired, is this need to control. It's like, if I don't control it, I can't predict the outcome, which, you can't really predict the outcome all the time. And this, sometimes in that is, well, if I do it myself, even if it takes longer, it's cheaper. And so I'm always kind of encouraging, like, okay, let's put a value on your time.
Exactly. It's never cheaper.
Exactly. And you don't want to be the bottleneck in your business. Because I use this analogy. It's like, okay, I just flew on a plane a couple of days ago. It's like, okay, well, if I got on a plane and the CEO of Delta Airlines is putting my luggage on the plane, making sure it's gassed up, giving out the drinks and the pillows, and getting ready to put that captain hat on, there's a problem, right? Right? That's not how it works. And so you can't be all the things and still think you're going to be able to get to where you want to be.
Exactly.
Right? So that, I think, is still something, that a lot of people continually struggle with. And I think the benefit of having, like you were talking about, the co-working house, like-minded individuals that are on the journey or maybe even slightly ahead, that can help you manage through those, because it's self-discipline. You don't have a performance evaluation. You don't have, a boss that you're reporting to. You are having to do those things, but you don't necessarily have to do all of the other, tasks that take time away from your zone of genius, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like there's a big distinction that a lot of people miss. Like if the business, I'll just say it like this. If your endeavor needs you to be there doing the work, you've created a job that you own. You've not created a business. It's like, for the most part, when you first start out, for the first 2 years, you own a job. You have the freedom to do what you want, like in your free time, but you probably don't have that much free time because you need to feed the beast and you need to like figure out how to make this job work. But if you never transition into not needing to do all the work, then you've never transitioned into owning a business. You still own a job. And a lot of people still own a job, even once they retire, once they sell it, like they're just like, oh, I work for myself. Yeah, you do. You work for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. That's deep. Um, There's a question. Alyssa has a question. Hey, Alyssa. So all of your businesses are registered in the US. How do you manage the income? That's a great question.
Yeah. So all of my businesses are registered in the US. I guess can you help me, Krishan? Like, what do you think about how do you manage income piece? I have like ideas. I can answer the question I think that's being asked, but
Yeah,
if you,
go for it. Mhm.
so all of my money is collected also in the US. So like I don't actually sell anything wherever I am. Like everything is online and linked to a US bank account. So it's really easy to track like the revenue and to like get the 1099s and everything. So the income management is really straightforward. It's just as if I was in the States.
Mm-hmm. And that
But it'll
makes
be
it easier because, the US taxes, people on their worldwide income. So it's smart to keep everything in the US much cleaner.
so I think like there are people who, for example, like I know the coffee shop that I went to where I met the Russian lady who gave me the connect for like the Facebook group and all this. It's owned by two brothers from California. They own multiple restaurants. And so I believe that how that works for them is of course, they have to have a local corporate entity. But the way the taxes work is I think because they're paying taxes in Indonesia,
Mm.
they're collecting the money in Indonesia and they're paying taxes in Indonesia. There's some type of arrangement where the money that they pay here in taxes, it gets like backed out of whatever their tax liability would be in the States.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, and we've had in Blaxit Global, and if you're in our passport community, you have access to that workshop already. So we had a tax professional, expat CPA, and she did a workshop on expat taxes and goes into, what you need to know in terms of like US responsibility, and then what you need to know in terms of the countries, and obviously, broad brush, of course, but nevertheless, if you're in Passport or you join Passport, you'll have access to that information. But that's a great question.
Yeah. I want
Um,
to piggyback on that really
yeah.
quickly. So with the taxing, I'm incentivized not to spend time in America. Like I would save more money by like going to Jamaica and flying all of the people from America that I went to see to Jamaica and housing them there than actually me just going to America for
That's
more
wild.
for more than like I think it's 29 days or something like that. But
Yeah.
I would rather post up in the Bahamas or post up nearby and fly my mom, dad, sister, nephews, brother-in-law, everybody and house them. That's how much money you save in taxes.
Wow. So that's a good segue before I jump into the rest of the questions. Is would you be able to do this business in the US?
Absolutely.
You think so?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm
Well,
impressed.
which one? Like travel
The
festival?
collection.
The um yes, but my production would for sure be somewhere else.
Really? It's
Yeah, like
very
I
expensive.
wouldn't. Manufacturing in the US is not the move. I
Yeah.
wouldn't do that. But like I think every place that you operate out of has its own challenges. The challenge from Bali is shipping. Shipping is
Ah.
stupid. So like if I were maybe manufacturing in Mexico,
Mhm.
shipping from the US, that it would solve some problem. So it's just like it's kind of six in one hand, half a dozen in the other. But I wouldn't manufacture in the US. Probably
Wow.
even the design process, everything from design to sampling to production, I would do it somewhere that's nearby
Mhm.
and then like just do the shipping from the US.
Wow. So with the collection now, you shipping from Bali, how are you navigating that run
So,
time?
and this is the interesting thing. So, because of the fact that I'm shipping from Bali, the cart is open for 2 weeks. We collect all the orders and then we are able to bulk ship them to the US, which makes it so that the pieces are not astronomically expensive. Because if we were shipping directly from Bali, like if I went
Mhm.
to ship one dress from Bali, it would just the one dress would cost $50 to get it to the US.
Wow.
Yeah. But then when you combine everything, it brings it down, 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 down. So then it ends up being like maybe $15-$20 per piece,
Mhm.
which is more digestible.
Yeah.
But that's just the reality. Those are just things you have to work around. And, there are a lot of people here who are just dealing with it and they've figured it out. So
Wow, I had no idea. This is
it's,
fascinating.
yeah.
Lynette says that she loves the collection. Yay! Yay! Oh, yes. And before because I know I dropped the link and some of y'all are looking at it as I pulled it up before, and I'll pull it up again. But Deirdre has 2 surprises for us. So she's being very generous tonight. So why don't we do the one now? Are you going to give it to me and then I'll pop it in? Okay. So hang on. It's one of 2. So, and while she's doing that, I will put up, let's see, some comments. Hey, Cleo Rose said, I'm so glad I tuned in. I'm so glad you're here. Awesome. And then, okay, I have this for you. So, for those of you who are here live, and for those of you who are watching the replay, hello, and want to support the collection, if you are as taken aback as I am by the stunning designs of my wonderful guest and my very first guest on the Blaxit Global podcast, who accepted the invitation of some lady who was recorded in her closet in New Jersey. Deirdre is giving us free shipping for orders over $50 with the code BLAXITSHIP. So you can use it. I just dropped it in the comments, but for those of you who are watching on the replay or listening to it in the background, there's a code there. It gives you free shipping on your order, $50 or more, using the code BLAXITSHIP. So thank you, Deirdre, for your generosity. Appreciate that. And like I said, there's another one coming. There's another surprise. So we will get to that. Grace is asking, are you self-financing your business? That's a great question.
Yes. So I think I have an interesting perspective on business financing. So when I was in grad school, I had a startup, and the startup was oh my gosh, it was literally we were in the senior care space. And by the way, if we had still been like making our way through this business, like during COVID, it just exploded because we're offering interactive programming for senior citizens. Of course, during COVID, you couldn't visit grandma, you couldn't visit grandpa, you might kill them. So it's better to actually stay away. And so we went around and we got all these contracts with just different senior care facilities and like brought their programming live into the homes of senior citizens who weren't in these different environments. Like they were isolated, and it just helped them to get like their mental health back and to like not feel isolated, all of that. Now, in that startup world, we would have needed to keep taking other people's money. OPM is what we call it, other people's money. Opium, it's addictive. Opium, so good, so tasty. But like, I think we actually left that business because we didn't want to live off of a maybe and off of like praying and hoping that other people's money would help us get to a place where we could make money from the business.
Okay.
So that influenced like my approach to business financing. I will only do a business that will make money for itself. Like if it can't bootstrap and like actually self-fund, like I'll invest my money, but that business better be funding itself. At the end of the day, like if I need opium, other people's money, I don't feel like that's not a business model that I'm comfortable with. Lots of people do it and are successful with it, like many, many people. So I'm not saying that it's a bad route, but just like my personal comfort level is like I want to do businesses that will be able to fund themselves and pretty quickly, like I can see the outcome. Like I don't need to keep dumping and dumping and dumping money into it before I can see any return or have an idea whether it's viable or not. So yes, I did self-fund, and pretty much any business you see me start will probably have been self-funded.
Wow. Thank you for that. That's a great answer and a great question. And then let's see. Grace, let's see. Twin Mommy. Hey, Twin Mommy's in the house. Hey, ladies, good topic. Grace asked about foreign tax credits. Have you encountered that?
Yeah, that's basically what I was just talking about. So when I said it would be cheaper for me to fly all of my family to Jamaica and just visit them there than like for me to stay 31 days in the States. It's I think foreign earned income tax credit. Foreign earned. So basically anything that you earn while you're living physically somewhere else, you're able, it's a lot.
Oh yeah, isn't it like 200 or something? Some wild amount.
Yeah, up to a whole lot, to where like once you cross that threshold, there's probably other things you could be using that would give you like maybe a better benefit. But up until the point that you're at that threshold, you need to be taking it. Well, it's up to you. Like some people would rather go and be in their native environment and like be able to see everybody and travel around for 2 months. I don't need that. Like I can go back for 29 days and then have my family meet me also wherever I am in the world. So like my family has traveled a lot. Like most of my family has like been on Black Travel Fest experiences, has come to Bali multiple times. So we're able to make it work.
Wow, that is great. And then I just pulled it up, although while I'm getting ready to share it, if you could drop me the link to BTF Bali, I have Black Travel Fest up, because I definitely want to share. For those of you, like I said, I'm excited to get to go to Black Travel Fest. I want to experience. I didn't go to an HBCU, unfortunately, and so the closest I got was watching Beyonce's. And I was like, oh, right. So
it is really like that. It is really like that.
So I am excited, right, to finally get to go. I want to chase some waterfalls. I want to have my photos done. I want to get all the shots for the gram.
Oh,
I want to do all the things.
it's gonna be so good. Like we have oh, I need to update that. It's October 2022 for Kenya. But yeah, the photographers are on point. We've been working with them for years. The videographers are gonna be there. Like we just take over places. Like
Wow.
no matter how big the group is, whether it's 10 people or 110, 120, we shut places down. So, and it's always an exclusive experience. So you'll be able to experience the absolute best of Bali because I have those relationships and I'm able to execute really well here. And I have just so many surprises. It's really hard for me to honor the free day. Because I'm like, okay, on this day they have free day. And I'm like, I'll go out and I'll discover something new. And I'm like, okay, I'm still going to give them the free day, but I really want to add this to the itinerary. But I've gained the throw everything in, but I really be wanting to like share everything.
Yeah, because I'm excited. I want, like I said, I'll follow you on Instagram. Obviously, we talk a lot. But I've not been to Bali. It's been on my list. And obviously, because the world was, kind of closed for a while, couldn't go. So super excited that Indonesia is opening up. I also know how important tourism is to Bali. So let's talk about, it's a nice little nexus because of the opportunity. I want to make sure that I get to, really the genesis of the conversation is the business aspect, right? So when you were living in Bali and now being able to create Black Travel Fest, you started to have your like marquee event really is that opportunity to build those relationships in Bali. Why was it so important to have it there?
It was A little bit kismet. As you guys will see, there's like a rolling trend of things falling into place. And so to back way up, before I actually had the notion for Black Travel Fest, I had a friend of a friend who was coming to Bali for she's Nigerian. I think it was like her third wedding of this set of weddings. She's done like one in the US, one in Nigeria, and she's like, I want to do one in Bali. And so my friend reached out and she's like, hey, can you give guidance to my friend who's having her wedding there? Like, you're living there, hopefully you know something. And so the girl reached out to me and she was like, can you do like 2 days of tours and events and activities for my group? And I was like, sure. Because in my previous corporate career, it was like the answer was always yes, you will figure it out. And I was like, okay. And so I kind of reached out to the connections that I already made up to that point and navigated, figured it out, executed it. And then the guests were like, Deirdre, is this what you do? Like, yo, can we refer people to you? And I was like, no, this is not what I do. This is what I did one time. Like, you're welcome. I'm glad you guys had a good experience, but this is not what we're about to be doing out here in the streets. Literally, I was just like, yeah, no. And then multiple times it came back where like different travel groups would reach out to me and they'd be like, hey, can you organize our event in Bali? And I'd be like, no. My answer was always no. And then eventually it was so aggressive that I was just like, okay, it keeps coming back. Maybe I'm supposed to say yes. So I eventually said yes. And I went back to all 5 of the companies that had reached out and I said yes. And those went really well. And then the whisper for, okay, you need to do this on your own and you need to do it big. And like the Black Travel Fest concept kept coming and coming and coming. And that's when I decided to go ahead and launch Black Travel Fest. But I think having the experience of doing it for other companies and like having the comfort here and knowing that I could create an experience that no one else can offer. No, like I feel very confident in saying that like no one else can offer the experience that I can offer in Bali because of the way I explore it and because of the like lens that I see the world through and the relationships I have. Like for the first event and the second one, we rented out a waterfall. So
What?
that's not even it's not even possible.
Wow. Like, oh man. I'm all
Yes.
excited. I'm like, can we fast forward to July?
Crazy. It's like, what? Renting out a water? What does that even mean? When I said I was going to do it, people were like, what are you even saying? You can't do that. You can.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I just, for those of you watching and those who are watching the replay, I just dropped the link for BTF Bali 2022. You can see the beautiful photos, the itinerary. You've heard it from the woman herself. She's got things on there, and then she's got things in here that she has shared. And so it will be for those of you who are figuring out, like, hey, what am I going to do this summer? World's opening up. I haven't planned anything. Or, hey, what do I do? This is the answer, right? It's that come together, be in fellowship, and then just have a bomb ass time. And so with that, I'll even get to our second surprise for those of you who are here, as well as those of you who are watching the replay. And here's the deal. The conversation is an important topic. Obviously, we're talking about building a business abroad. And with that, we want to support our sister here. But please share the information with other people. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. But this is information that can help someone else who is thinking about starting a business, thinking about moving abroad. Maybe it's a dream deferred. Maybe it's someone telling them that their business idea wouldn't work out, or they encountered difficulty in the US because our market is really saturated, and now has the opportunity to start a business abroad by hearing from someone firsthand who's now successfully launched multiple businesses in different, venues and in different verticals. And so with that, I'm going to get to the second surprise. So Deirdre is super generous, as you can tell, right? She already gave us the $50 free shipping using the code BLAXITSHIP for the Deirdre Dares Freedom Collection. Now, for those of you who are interested in attending with me, might add, I might add, BTF Bali, you will receive $150 off of BTF Bali with the code BLAXIT150. That is 150, y'all. So
like we never we never offer discounts, but I know that your people are the BTF people. Like they're already the people who are in the frame of mind that know that they want to go and create a different life for themselves. And traveling, just traveling in so many of the Black Travel Fest folks had no concept of moving abroad and have now since done so since traveling with us.
Wow, that is exciting.
Yeah. So I think there's something about like getting out, being surrounded by all this melanin, and just like re-envisioning what your life could be. Something special happens at these events. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for Sean. You guys are not going to see this somewhere else.
No, you will not.
we don't
Global.
Yeah, the only time you will see like a lesser price for our experiences is if you grab the early bird. And the early bird is usually just 3 days. So if you don't purchase within those 3 days, it's gone.
Wow. And so the code activates, because I know you and I are on 2 different time zones.
Yeah.
Because it is morning where you are, it is evening where I am. So the code is active as of May 1st, if I got that right.
May 1st, so that'll be like basically 3 hours from now.
Okay, yeah, and that's just because we're managing time zones, y'all. So for those of you who are not on, or those of you who are in North America, you will be able to experience that in a couple more hours. And then you can take advantage of it. But as of May 1st, you can use the code. But again, want to thank you for your incredible generosity. I mean, that's a total of $200 between, the free shipping of the collection to this. So I definitely am very appreciative, as I know those of you who are watching the replay. I think like the chat done blew up. Cleo Rose said, "You better go, girl." June Quet said, "Thank you for the code." Glass Half Full says the Ghana Glow Up jumpsuit will be perfect for my daughter. It's just amazing. I love all the positive energy that is here. So thank you all for tuning in. So Deirdre, I always ask, because you got a lot on your plate, right? So what is next for you?
A part of me wants to say, we'll see where the next whisper comes from. But I would say really leaning more into Black Travel Fest and like just nurturing that business and being able to be in that true CEO role, looking at the landscape and seeing where Black Travel Fest can kind of plug some of the holes in the market in a nice way. And then with this collection, I'm already learning it's so exciting. I'm learning so much about just like people's buying habits and patterns and people breaking the mold in ways that I would not have expected. So for example, I'm always long-winded. I apologize for that. But like I'll see people do things like I would not anticipate. Like some people are buying the leggings from the fitness set and then like getting the kimono that's also printed. And I'm like, what are you about to do? What you got planned over there? I'm like, what are you? I need the picture. Whatever you're about to do with this coordination thing, I need to know what you're doing when you actually take the pictures. So I think like it's just with the collection, it's going to be a beautiful education of me kind of like learning and evolving, and then trying to figure out ways to merge the collection even more with Black Travel Fest. So as you know, we have the collection photo shoot, this like amazing photo shoot experience that we're going to have, where everyone can wear their dresses and their jumpsuits and just be fly. But who knows? I don't know how it could evolve. So I think like what's next is me kind of just following the pings and the whispers and the intuition and just letting life unfold. If I'm being true to myself. Yeah.
That's beautifully put. I just want to give those of y'all who are in the comments and still with us, if there's any last questions that you might have, now is your time to field it. Otherwise, I'm going to let our wonderful sister go and enjoy the rest of her Sunday. Sunday, right, is where you are?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't know. What is it? Yeah, Sunday.
Right. It's like, is it Sunday? Oh, yes. But before we go, I also want to share a bit of inspiration from Deirdre, from her to y'all, because this is a video. I shared it on our Blaxit Global Instagram page. So for those of you who are following, you probably have seen it in the stories, but if those of you who have not, you can do this. And I refer to it as like your TED Talk.
I love that.
It is. It's like I find inspiration in it. Obviously I'm still in the United States, scouting, getting ready to make my Blaxit next year. But it's really something that feeds me. And just it's inspiring to hear your journey. And just as a reminder for those of you who joined late or those of you who are watching the replay, Deirdre was my very first guest on the Blaxit Global podcast. So definitely listen to that episode. And if you've already listened to it, listen to it again. You can find it on our YouTube channel as well as wherever you listen to the Blaxit Global podcast. And I also, Cleo asked, this is a great question, and I will let you answer that.
Okay. So the best way is to literally drop me a DM. Even like some of my family members find it faster to get to me by DM than by like trying to WhatsApp me or like iMessage me. So I would say
I just popped your Instagram handle in the comments.
Thank you.
No problem. And then the collection also has its own Instagram page. So if you want to shoot that one to me, I don't have that one handy, but so you can follow Deirdre on Instagram. That's where she's most active. I'll drop the links. I think I already did, but I'll drop it again to Black Travel Fest. And we've already dropped the one.
I'm just realizing I have links on links on links on links. Who's managing all this stuff?
And if you don't have somebody managing that, you just need to have somebody to manage that. But again, that's the joy of having multiple businesses, right? And like you said, is having not only the space, but the freedom to do that, right? To live life on your own terms. And let me tell you, for me, like I'm the closest now that I've been to this journey, and it is wrought with emotions and second guessing and all of that, all of those things, right? But when I have conversations with people like you, and this was a great conversation to have because we had our initial conversation almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, you were far out then.
Yeah, right. And exactly, it just seems so far away, and to now check in with you almost 2 years later and see how you've evolved and your businesses have evolved from that initial conversation to now. at least for me, it reinforces that, the answers will come. You just have to be still, have faith, and listen to the whispers. But that's what I'm taking away from this conversation.
100%. Yes, the answer. It's like when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yes, yes, yes. So I think I've dropped all the links. I think you all are set with the links. I will be sure once this video has processed in YouTube to add them to the description of this video for those of you who are watching the replay, or for those of you who did not grab the codes, the discount codes. So those are, and I'll recap them before we end. So for Black Travel Fest Bali, it is $150 off as of May 1st using code BLAXIT150. And for the Deirdre Dares Freedom Collection, I love the name of it. It is free shipping on US orders over 50, and it is code BLAXITSHIP. So, again, share this, send it to a friend. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, have the notification bell on. Don't forget, Monday, you have a brand new episode of the Blaxit Global podcast. And it is a episode I have never done before. I mean, none of them I've done before, but this one in particular, the type of conversation has never been done on the show. I'm really excited for Monday's episode. Uh, I really am excited about Monday's episode. Um, and please, when you listen, shoot me a message, a DM, whatever. Let me know what you think of the episode. But I hope you will be as thrilled and as excited as I am. So please listen. And with that, I want to thank you, Deirdre, not only for your time, effort, and energy in being here today, but again, your generosity. Because, like I said, I looked at the chat and people are like, wait, I got to write it down. So I am so thrilled to have this opportunity to catch up with you, so to support your businesses, and just grateful that you're able to share your expertise with our audience.
Thank you so much, Krishan. And y'all may not know this, but behind the scenes, Krishan is like, just, you're so amazing, like so encouraging, so supportive. You're always connecting me, and I know tons of other people with different resources. Like, you're a master connector. I don't know if you guys know this, but she's a connector. And so there have been times in my journey where you have been that person that arrives in the moment that I need something. And so for that, I just want to thank you for continuing to show up and for ushering all these beautiful souls through their Blaxit and getting them to that freedom point. And yeah, it's just been a pleasure getting to know you over these years and just working with you and collaborating. So thank you for being you and for doing the work that you do.
Thank you. And I can't wait till I get to Bali so I can actually physically hug you in person, baby.
We're going to have a good time. It's going to be a little outrageous. It's going to be a
We have
little.
to make sure there's a videographer there to capture that moment.
Oh my God. It's going to be so good. I'm excited. It's going to be too good. Too good.
Too good, too good. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deirdre. And thank you, everybody that tuned in. It is my pleasure to serve. Again, listen to the Blaxit Global podcast. It will be back with more on the YouTube channel. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you, Krishan.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.